reaction from Vali Padiachi in a moment on this. The Electricity Minister, Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, says load reduction will end in the next year, but there is something of a condition and caveat. I'll get his thoughts in a moment. Power issues, and I don't mean politically, I mean the electrical power issues. Eskom saying the national grid is on the mend. So I never thought I would have a chance to say that to you, but it does look like it is coming right. It's been months now, no jinxing it, without any rolling blackouts. Yes, there's still power outages, and depending who you ask, there are reasons for that. But the electricity minister was briefing the country earlier today, so of course I wanted to hear from energy expert Vali Padiachi making time for us this afternoon. Now remember, this is a man who's been around for a long time. Professor Padiachi is a power and energy expert, also former executive manager at Eskom, that's very, very important, and former senior executive of City Power Johannesburg. He's making time for us this afternoon. And Prof, good to have you back with us. And I always recite those titles because they're important, because you understand both the Eskom side and the City Power side. So the minister telling us that the load reduction should be gone by the end of next year. Do you believe him?
Good afternoon, Gareth. Good afternoon to you and your viewers, and I'm glad to be back. Yes, I think I would accept that, except I think even the minister has made some disclaimers. He said that if there's cooperation from the targeted, let's call it provinces, then those timelines should be met. Meaning, as a corollary, if there's no cooperation and other things are not equal, then those timelines will be not met.
Yeah. It sounds, you say conditions, I call it a cop-out. Maybe I'm being unfair.
Yes, Gareth. For want of a better word, yes, you are, let's put it this way, partially unfair. I think, maybe just to preface my comments, I think the minister gave an excellent presentation today. You know, without being biased, he gave a typical engineer, and I say that positively, presentation, because he started off with a problem statement. He went into significant data and lots of analysis, a couple of case studies, and then he came up with his plan. And his plan was also reasonably detailed, subject to the disclaimers I've just mentioned. So I'm comfortable that the plan could work, albeit some of the disclaimers, Gareth.
Yeah. So community cooperation then, let's dig into that. Prof, what does that mean exactly in your mind? What does cooperation by communities actually entail?
Well, if we take a step back, you know, we've moved away, well, hopefully we moved away permanently from massive load shedding to load reduction. And load reduction is not because of not having electricity. We do have electricity, we do have electrons, but it's purely because of, let's call it illegal or theft of electricity on the respective grids throughout the country. I mean, the minister quoted a figure of 971 feeders, which, according to his stats, is quite minimal in terms of the bigger picture of the country, in terms of the national grid. And so the illegal connections is basically, to keep it simple, is where the incumbents are stealing electricity from the grid. Yeah. And there are various reasons for that. And I guess the economic situation and the high cost of electricity. Now, I'm emphasizing that. The minister has emphasized that. The astronomical high cost of electricity is forcing people to steal. So in terms of cooperation, my take is that the minister is expecting people to cooperate when they roll out. And one of his initiatives is the rollout of smart meters and free basic electricity and distributed engineering resources, meaning smart microgrids, etc. Yeah. So he is expecting the population to cooperate in the midst of their hardships. Got it.
I want to actually ask you, I think we all understand, Prof, the rolling out of smart meters. It's not a new concept. They've been doing this for a while. It does seem to be working. If you were to explain a microgrid to me, someone who has no engineering background, how would you write that headline? What is a microgrid? What's the purpose? How do you explain that to a muggle like Gareth?
Before I get to very quickly on the microgrid, our major generation in the country is centralized generation. So we have major power stations, and they generate electron, and they are distributed nationally, countrywide, through major transmission grids and distribution grids. As we know currently, the transmission grids and the distribution grids are constrained, congested, I call it constipated, and to deconstipate them comes at a huge cost to get them to rural areas where they're absent now, and hence they do not have electricity. So what the minister is saying is that to avoid that constraint, in other words, the expenditure of used capital, microgrid is small little grid systems adjacent to the areas which require the supply, the rural areas. So you would plonk a small little, let's call it grid, and he's talking about solar PV associated with battery storage. So you would have a solar PV generation with backup from battery storage, and they would supply the population in those areas.
Okay.
So that's a microgrid.
Okay, I understand. Just a last question, Prof. I just want your view on this. So the minister seems quite confident that the load reduction will end, but he's putting a lot of trust in municipalities to try and get this right. Municipalities haven't had the best run in handling their electricity demand and distribution and supply. It's quite a leap of faith by the minister. Would you agree?
Well, I also represent the municipalities on another cap that I use. I think when it comes to load reduction, the municipalities like Eskom are in sync, are aligned with the minister's recommendations, because the load reduction is obviously addressing a critical challenge of service delivery, and the recommendation by the minister and his plan seeks to address that. So I'm of the opinion that the cooperation, collaboration from Munich will be there in the context of the plans, and so I'm confident that we'll have, as a general comment, support from the municipalities, because it goes to the heart of the service delivery mandate. And if they don't do that, we'll be in a worse of position. Gareth.
Prof, I appreciate your time. There'll be more to react to as we begin to unpack what the minister had to say this morning. I wanted to just get some initial reaction from energy expert Professor Vali Panayiotou. As I mentioned before, of course, former executive manager at Eskom and former senior executive at City Power Johannesburg. It's why I like to talk to the professor, because he has worn both of those hats. He's sat in those various positions, and he does have a succinct way of breaking it down, as I was saying, for muggles like myself to understand what is exactly going on. That's his view. You agree? You think it's going to work? You let us know on ENCA. It's at ENCA on X and Facebook. It's ENCA News on Facebook and also Instagram. How do you think the minister is doing? You tell us. It's your show as well. 18 minutes away from 5 o'clock in South Africa.